I first of all think that the Montessori experience I had growing up was truly transformational. It's not like a traditional school experience. You're really developing a love of learning. And I think that has just carried with me throughout high school and throughout middle school, even when I did switch to more of a traditional learning environment. In Montessori, you really get to work with materials. You're learning about concepts in a very hands on way. You're interacting with other students and the teacher in very close knit groups. And so I think that has just really led me to love school and love what I'm doing and focus on the concept and the application behind things rather than just the content itself. So I think that has just led me to be very curious and want to be able to learn more about why things work the way they do. And I'm very grateful to my Montessori experience to instill that love of learning that's just really carried with me throughout.
So, is there a moment or a lesson from your Montessori environment that still sticks with you today?
Yes, and I would say it's personal accountability. When you show up to a school day in Montessori school, it's not like any other school. You don't have periods one, two, three, lunch breaks, very carefully planned out. You have autonomy to choose what you want to do. You walk in, you get to set an intention for what you want to do in the day. And then as you go on through each activity and lesson, you write it in a record book. So you write the time and then what you did, and this just builds the great skill of accountability because you're learning how to make decisions on your own from such a young age. You're learning how to record them. And then you check in with the teacher, towards the end of the day that this is what I was able to accomplish. And I think that skill is just incredible to learn at such a young age. It taught me a lot about staying on track, staying focused, really budgeting my time. And that, as things become busier once you grow up, that's a skill that is a lot harder to pick up later on. And so I'm just so grateful I was able to learn it earlier.
So, how do you think this early years in your Montessori shaped the way you approach challenges now?
Yeah, well, I think you learn how to be very creative and open minded when you're in Montessori school. It's all about growth. It's very much you develop a growth mindset. If there's ever a conflict or a challenge, you're learning how to think of solutions and be very solution oriented. And so I think no matter what problem has come up later down the line, whether it be an academic challenge or a challenge that's come up in an extracurricular activity, I'm learning how to think about the solutions and what could be done instead of just kind of giving up the minute the problem comes up. That's something that you learn in Montessori school. It's all about how you can grow, evolve, and just tackling problems fearlessly. And so that is a great skill that continues to help me deal with challenges today.
What was different about the way you were taught or encouraged to learn?
I think the teachers wanted to support you, but ultimately they wanted you to be able to lead your own journey. I think what happens at in some other learning environments is there's so many people there and such a rigid structure that it's harder to find yourself in the learning journey. And so in Montessori school, they really want you to be the leader of your own path and your own schedule. That's just a very different approach that is great because, like I mentioned earlier, I learned personal accountability. I developed a love of learning. I learned how to be solution oriented. And that all comes from the way that Montessori gives you a lot of independence when you're younger. And with that independence comes a lot of support when you need it. But you're just learning how to be your own person, how to just put your values first and just grow as a person.
So, in your classroom, when you were working in small groups or large groups, how did you resolve conflicts?
Yes. So sometimes naturally conflicts do arise. What would actually end up happening is usually when I was in this type of situation, we would meet with our teacher, we would have a discussion, and it was very much like everyone would get to put their feelings on the table because oftentimes it's super easy to point towards everyone else and say, this person did this, but they teach you to really start with an I statement of, I did this and I felt this. And that helps everybody truly understand where each other's coming from. The teacher facilitates the conversation, but really leaves it up to us to be able to work through any tension together. And then once everyone's able to understand each other's feelings, it's a lot easier to think of a win win situation. Win win situations were always highlighted when I was in Montessori school because ultimately you don't want a solution that's going to benefit some and leave others feeling unheard or misunderstood. And so, really learning how to account for everybody's feelings and points of view in a conflict resolution is really important.